into the fabric on the loom and tighten it with the pin, I'll become as weak as any other man." So while he was sleeping, Delilah took the 7 braids of his head, wove them into the fabric, and tightened with the pin. Again she called to him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He awoke from his sleep and pulled up the pin and the loom with the fabric. Then she said to him, "How can you say I love you when you won't confide in me? This is the 3rd time that you have made a fool of me and haven't told me the secret of your great strength." With such nagging, she prodded him day after day until he was tired to death. So he told her everything. "No razor has ever been used on my head," he said, "because I have been a Nazirite set apart to God since birth. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me, and I would become as weak as any other man." When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, "Come back once more. He has told me everything." So the rulers of the Philistines returned with silver in their hands. Having put him to sleep on her lap, she called a man to shave off the 7 braids of his hair, and so began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He awoke from his sleep and thought, "I'll go out as before and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had left him. So it's an interesting progression. The only thing that I can figure is that Samson had gotten away with so much for so long, he thought, what have I got to lose? There's no way on earth, in my mind, that he couldn't have known that as soon as he told her about the hair, that she would figure out a way to shave his head. Everything else that he had said, she tried. And finally, to shut her up, he told the truth. For some reason, God was faithful to him as long as he honored that one part of his vow. He definitely wasn't doing the whole thing, but as long as he kept that one part, for some reason, God was faithful to him. He decided maybe that was the area where he would not compromise, but sin always takes you further than you want to go. His hair was the very last thing. I believe that everything else he was doing had grieved the heart of God. God didn't ask him to only do part of it. He asked him to do all of it. The question we are tempted to ask then is, how far can we go before we're in trouble? The answer is this: it's always before you know. You realize when Samson woke up and head shaved, he thought, I'm out of here. He did not know that the Spirit had left him. Sin had taken him farther than he ever wanted to go. He led Israel for 20 years and single-handedly held off the Philistines in all that time, and now he found himself being helpless without the Spirit of God and in the hands of those that opposed him. The Philistines were a godless people, and Samson was now among their ranks, a godless man in a godless land. And no doubt, this is not where he wanted to go. But sin does that. Second thing that sin does is it always keeps you longer than you wanted to stay. In verse 21, it says, "Then the Philistines seized him. They gouged out his eyes and took him down to Gaza, binding him with bronze shackles. They sent him to grinding in the prison." So now Samson finds himself in bondage and unable to free himself. That's what sin tends to do. I've never heard anybody, like a young man, you say, what is it that you want to do with your life? I've never heard anyone say, me? I'm hoping to be a drug addict. I'm hoping that someday if I put enough in my veins or up my nose or whatever, that I'll be so addicted to that I can't do anything. I can't hold a job or anything like that. I hope that I get to rot my life away in prison. I've never heard anyone say that. No one decides on their wedding day that they're not looking down the road and seeing, someday I'm going to cheat on this person and this marriage, I'm going to destroy it. No one decides that they want to die from AIDS or contract some kind of STD. No one decides that they really want to be in bondage or out of control of their own lives, but sin is very seductive. This is what the devil tells people all the time. You can handle it. It's not going to hurt you just this one time. Besides, who will really know? Compromise always has a logical explanation. Samson, he did it for love. Delilah, she did it for money. Adam and Eve, they were in pursuit of knowledge. You and I, it's always something. We're too busy. We're tired. We're weak. We're sick. Whatever our excuse, compromise will always weaken us to the point of failure someday. That's when we make God's plan fit into our schedule instead of our schedule fitting into God's plan. There's some commercials that were on TV and billboards all over the place that I thought were just the most grotesque exaggeration. So when I was in school, they would show us all these drug films, and I remember one of the things they said, that they would get up and say, any of you who are thinking of shooting up drugs, what happens is if you get the tiniest little air bubble in your vein, you will have a horrible stroke and die. And I was in Bible college, I had to give blood for a living there for a little bit. And me and my buddy, well, we were giving plasma. They spin off the, I don't know, he figured it out, but they put the blood back in you. I don't know what they get out of it, but. And so I was done, and I was watching my friend, and here come this bubble down the pipe headed for his vein, and I started just screaming, hey, get over here, he's going to die, and they don't like you yelling stuff like that at the blood bank. They run over and look and hear this little, they get there right as this little bubble goes into his vein. I said, see, he's dead now, you idiots. And they said, that's not going to hurt you. I said, yeah, but they told me in school that if you, well, that's because they didn't want you to do that. They were trying to scare you. I felt like a fool. Now, why don't you just tell me the truth, And so I saw these commercials, all these commercials on TV about methamphetamine. I don't know if you got to know what I'm talking about. There's always somebody going, well, they just play out this thing, if only I had done this differently or that. And I thought, what an exaggeration. And I would see the billboards where the teeth are all rotted out. And I thought, what an exaggeration. That's, man, just knock it off. Till I saw somebody in that condition. I found out it's not an exaggeration. Well, why would anybody put themselves at that kind of risk? It's because none of us think it'll ever go that far. Nobody does. Samson, I'm sure that in the back of his mind somewhere, he was probably thinking, you know what, I'm going to have fun while I'm young. Then when I'm older, I'll settle down and I'll get serious about all of this. You and I just can't live out our lives the way that we see fit. We've got to seek God and His plan for our lives. There's millions of people from all walks of life that have found themselves in places that they never intended to go, in circumstances that they never dreamed would happen. Why? It's because sin will always take you further than you wanted to go, and it'll keep you longer than you wanted to stay.